The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to another episode of Atmospheric Insight. I'm your host, meteorologist Adam Epstein, joined by meteorologist Riley O'Connor. Riley, I am excited for this episode because of a few reasons, but one of them being the Ask Adam segment. It's the favorite one I've done so far.
Is it? All right. Looking forward to it. I think I remember the hint. Should we say what it was, or was it a surprise?
Yeah, we'll get into it in just a second.
All right.
But first, let's jump into atmospheric impacts because this first one is very top of mind for right now, especially people on the East Coast are talking about it. It's our Atlantic tropical cyclone season. First thing I want to go over is the amount of storms we've had, and these are all the ones that have been named from the A to the I, most recently Imelda. And you're just looking at Imelda status right now, right?
Yeah, category 2. And we think that is going to be, the highest it goes for it. But it did reach category 2 already today. So, yeah.
Right. Category 2 storm. And then Umberto, the one that's also in the Atlantic, maxed out as a category 5 hurricane. So that's top of the scale. Thing just a straight up monster. And we have this very interesting phenomenon that's fairly rare, too. We have these two hurricanes that are very close to each other within a couple hundred miles, and they actually impact the path.
Yeah.
So this benefits the United States in the fact that Umberto is so strong, it actually pulled Imelda out away from the eastern seaboard, and they're merging right now as we speak into one low pressure, one cyclone. Pretty fascinating, and I'm sure you've seen the Fujiwara effect before, right?
I have it. It's really cool to see. And if you don't really know what it is, it's almost like two storm systems, two hurricanes, two low pressure systems almost do a dance around each other.
Yeah.
And one basically is the leader, you will say, and kind of affects the other one.
Right. It's that stronger one that has more of a pull.
Yep.
I was talking about this on TV yesterday, and I can relate it to putting like two heavy marbles on a trampoline. And if one's a bit heavier, they attract towards each other, but the heavier one has that stronger pull.
Yeah.
So that's what Umberto was to Imelda, and it pulled it out. It didn't do that cool dance where they rotate around each other.
That is, right. It was sort of the Fujiwara effect.
Yeah,
but yeah.
It's like a stronger one where just like ate it, and then they just merged, became one. Unfortunately, that merger happened well out to the sea, so it's not really impacting the East Coast aside from some rough surf. So we got lucky there.
Very. I want to say this. It's interesting just even looking on comments on social media because people will be like, what happened? Why did all of a sudden just turn right?
I know,
it was like, nope, bye.
Yeah, it was a hard right turn.
Yeah, it was.
And the models before this actually had it curving into South Carolina. So there was a big concern of what the impact could be like. But it's Umberto that had different plans for it. So no. You're coming with me.
Had a mind of its own.
Right. All right. So with these names, there have been times that this year we're almost done with all of the names. Next up would be Jerry, then Karen, Lorenzo, and so on. But this doesn't really measure the cyclone season in a sense. One way we measure this is called ACE, Accumulated Cyclone Energy. And this is from some professors at Colorado State University that specialize in hurricanes and tropical cyclones. I know it's weird. It's Colorado State. You wouldn't expect it, but they're the best at it. So one of the metrics they come up with in the 90s is ACE, and this will take the energy from the areas of low pressure, how strong they were, how long they lasted, and quantify that. So that purple line that you're seeing is climatology. That's what's considered normal over the past 30 years. But the blue line that's in the screen, that's a little bit lower, but very, very close to what's considered normal for this time of the year. That was a bit of a surprise to me because it seems like this hurricane season in the Atlantic has been quiet, right?
Right. It does, because you really do think about how active it has been in the past, and we go through the names quickly, right?
Yeah, right. And when it comes to landfalls, we usually have one or two that are major. This year it was Chantal. That was earlier on in the season. And that wasn't a major hurricane for landfall. So we've been pretty lucky. On the West Coast, we don't worry about this as much, but it's obviously something as meteorologists that we monitor. And I remember you telling me that you love hurricanes, right? That's one of the things meteorology you take a passion
I
for.
I do. It's fascinating to me, and I think ever since I was a kid, it was the same situation. But just how they develop, how they form, and where they go, how they are so easily steered. If you have just a little bit of wind shear, if you have an upper level trough that pulls through, and how strong they are, but how easily they can be guided off somewhere else. And this,
Yeah,
for example, with Umberto and Imelda, how it worked with that Fujiwara effect. It's just a cool, I don't know, it's
it
just
was
fascinating
cool.
to me.
And yeah, it's rare. It was really cool. I think anybody, even those who are not into science, would
Yeah.
appreciate that. And now we're looking at the tropical frequency peak season, which peaked around September 10th. And from here on out, you expect less,
Mhm.
but doesn't mean nothing can happen. You know, uh, one of the storms that I'm reminded of all the time, just by thinking about it, and I know you have a little bit of a nod to this one as well, is Sandy.
Yeah.
This one was like a Halloween storm, late October,
Yep.
right? And I said we would talk about our favorites, and for you, Sandy is one of yours, right?
It was the most memorable that really stood. I mean, there were many. Katrina was, but Superstorm Sandy was just one that you watched so closely, and all these dynamics that came together to really enable this storm to go into a large population to steer into New York or in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And it was and all of the devastation that happened. I mean, it was horrible for people, but I was so fascinated with it. I think I had the weather on constantly
Oh,
watching this,
so this was
and you lived through it.
Yeah, I was in upstate New York during this, but my parents were home in Long Island,
Mhm.
and I think we could probably do an episode just on like our most impactful weather events, most memorable weather events,
Mhm.
because this was it for me, and I could talk easily for 10 minutes about this. But the bottom line is, caused a lot of flooding. There was some wind damage. There were power outages that lasted for days.
Mhm.
It was New York City was a mess too. I mean, wow, talk about an impactful storm and late in the season. That's the key. So we'll talk more about
Yeah.
that another time on Atmospheric Insight. We'll have to carve out some time for some
Yeah.
impactful weather events for our
Yeah,
lives.
like I said, yeah, we could probably talk for a long time on this one. And first of all, how big it was too, Adam. Wasn't it was like
Yes.
1,000 miles that the tropical storm winds
Oh, that was a
effectively.
special one. It's called a superstorm, right?
Yep.
Because it was a merger with a cold front that
Yep.
came together and it gave it like another life,
Mhm.
even though it didn't even make landfall as a hurricane,
Mhm.
but it was a superstorm
Yeah.
in a sense. All right, now to my favorite Ask Adam. This one is about my favorite clouds. So I get to talk to you all about what clouds I love and why, and there are some really unique ones. Check it out.
Welcome to another installment of Ask Adam. This week's question comes from Peter Rice, and he asks, what are your favorite clouds? Well, I've got a few, and I'm willing to bet you haven't seen or heard of most of these. Starting out with my number one overall all-time favorite cloud, the lenticular. These are so cool and unique looking, like a UFO or a flying saucer. And your only chance to see these will be if you're near a mountain range, because mountains cause these by pushing air up, where it condenses into that thin disk, and then the air falls. Another cool feature of these is that they can stack. One forms pushing the previous one up, and that pattern continues until they look like a stack of pancakes. And this example happening right here in the Sierra. Another one of my favorites, a classic. Can't go wrong with this one, the cumulonimbus, the thunderstorm cloud. It produces severe weather, which I find fascinating. It's also majestic and powerful to see in person. And there are some really cool accessory clouds that tend to only form in association with these. A little fun fact about cumulonimbus. You know the saying, I'm on cloud 9? Cloud 9 is a cumulonimbus cloud. Back in 1896, the International Cloud Atlas came out. In the first edition, they named 10 clouds. The 9th cloud, cumulonimbus, the highest a cloud can be. So that's the highest you can be when you have the saying, I'm on cloud 9. Now, one of the accessory clouds that go along with cumulonimbus, the mammatus, and these pouches show up. If you see these in person, that either means a thunderstorm just passed, or more exciting, a thunderstorm is coming your way. And check out this example at sunset. This color is just unreal. It looks otherworldly. But there's a good chance you see mammatus clouds if you know what you're looking for. Another cool feature is a shelf cloud, also known as Arcus. This is the leading edge of a thunderstorm, and it can look pretty daunting, kind of like the end of the world is coming. And it's a good sign for you to head indoors. This example from New Jersey. This one is very rare, called the asperitas clouds. You may never see this one in person. It's like dropping a pebble in a pond, except the pebble is a thunderstorm and the pond is the air. It creates this waves, and it can be more long form too. This example coming from Augusta, Georgia. This one I know looks photoshopped, but I assure you it's real. I've had the luxury of seeing this in person a few times. Kevin Helmholtz waves, also known as fluctus. These occur when you have air going at different speeds in the atmosphere. So if wind's going slowly in the lower parts of the atmosphere, a little bit faster above, it creates this curling effect. And if you see these in person, make sure you take a picture quickly because they tend not to last very long. That curl eventually crashes just like a wave does, and the cloud dissipates. Another really cool cloud, because of how it forms and what it looks like, is the hole punch cloud. Let's say you have a layer of altocumulus clouds. These are all water droplets. Well, one of those droplets freezes, and all of a sudden you have this process called glaciation occur, where all these other water droplets around it start to freeze as well. And those ice particles literally fall out of the sky, creating a hole in those clouds. And this example, so cool, not just because of the hole punch, but this is virga. Those ice particles are evaporating before they reach the ground. And the last one has a bit of an asterisk next to it. It's called the noctilucent cloud, and I'll tell you why. All of the clouds we've been talking about so far are in the lowermost layer of the atmosphere, the troposphere. Then you go up to the stratosphere, and above that is the mesosphere. That's where you find the noctilucent. This only forms when water vapor freezes around specks of dust from incoming meteors, and it's only visible during dawn or dusk. So as you can imagine, this one is super rare. I've never seen it, but it's on my bucket list. And if you ever see something like this, you'll know it's a noctilucent cloud. So special. This is an example during sunset in Germany. And if this doesn't convince you that we live on a beautiful planet, I don't know what does. Peter, thank you for giving me an excuse to talk about my favorite clouds, one of my favorite subjects. I hope you always continue to ask questions and stay curious.
All right, Riley.
Very cool.
Fun subject. Favorite cloud for you before we go to break?
Oh, Mammatus.
Mammatus clouds.
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
one that we covered. Very good choice. I will be right back in 2 minutes.
All right, welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. Next, we're going to take you talking about tree canopy and why shade is important.
And we're in the city of trees. Very topical. Here we go.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us today, Rachel and Gabby. Rachel Patton is the Sustainability Project Manager for the Department of Public Works here in Sacramento. And we wanted to talk with her today about a really cool thing that's going on about the urban forest plan. Now, Rachel, I want you to tell me a little bit about this. Now, I understand back in June, the city council approved this urban forest plan. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Riley. So City Council adopted the Sacramento Urban Forest Plan in June of this year. It is a plan that sets a goal for the city to grow our tree canopy to 35% by 2045. And basically what that means is we want to double the number of trees that are in the city of Sacramento from 1 million to 2 million. And the plan sets that goal, and then it outlines strategies and actions that we're going to take as an organization and in partnership with the community to get there.
Really interesting to hear about this. And I know that trees do such a great thing, many benefits to a city. So it's currently 19% right now, correct?
Yeah.
Was it higher in the past and it went down?
Actually, through some research that we did at the start of this plan, what we found is that we've been growing our tree canopy a lot over the last few years. So we've done some analysis from 2004, and then 2016, and we did see that the canopy was growing. As a lot of people know, Sacramento is the city of trees.
Mm-hmm.
But when our city was founded back in the 1850s, this is a natural grassland with really only trees along the river. And so we're the city of trees because people plant trees here in Sacramento, and it's really important to the community. So that 19% is actually something that we've achieved over time by just slowly growing the tree canopy here by planting and caring for more trees over time.
Wow, that's an interesting stat, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the city's goal to double the tree canopy? I know you went into that a little bit, but what steps are being taken right now to help this happen and to reach that goal by 2045?
Yeah, so we really set this goal in part because it's such a benefit to the community. So we're really wanting to reduce heat and improve health and wellness for the residents. And so it's a really important thing. And the city's taking a lot of action already. And we're increasing those efforts now that we have this plan. So some of the things that we're doing right now, we've got a great team of urban foresters that actually go around and care for trees that the city owns and maintains along our streets and in our parks. The city cares for about 130,000 trees. So that number has actually grown. We used to say it was 100,000, and we've seen that increase through our planting efforts, which is really great. And then right now we're going into a really cool time coming out of summer and into fall. And so we're going to be starting to plant a lot of trees in our parks and along our streets because it's a really good time to do that. Over the last year, the city's planted over 3,000 trees in our parks and along our streets, which is more than the number of trees that naturally reach the end of their life or die. So that's great. We're increasing that canopy, and we're gearing up to start that big planting effort and plant hundreds of trees over the next 6 months.
Give us some more benefits on what this will do for the city.
Yeah. Heat reduction is one of the biggest ones. That's actually people plant trees in Sacramento because it is so hot here and it reduces our exposure to that heat. We found through this plan and some researchers that have studied Sacramento that between neighborhoods that have a lot of trees and neighborhoods that have less can actually make up to a 15 to 20 degree difference in temperatures outside. So, that's something that we're really focusing on as a key benefit for why the city thinks this is important. In addition to that, just improved air quality and then quality of life. It's nicer to go outside and play with your kids or ride your bike, or even just go outside and kind of take a deep breath if you're having a stressful day, if you're around some trees. So it really helps people's lives.
Absolutely. And I know that very well. It's always wonderful to just be outside in nature. It just makes you feel better, right?
Absolutely.
So, one last question. How can people in the community get involved with this and be a part of it?
Absolutely. There's a couple ways. So I mentioned we're going to start planting in parks. So we're recruiting volunteers to do that. If folks want to just check our website, we have a volunteer in parks program, a VIP program. So they can Google that program in City of Sacramento Volunteers in Parks and find opportunities to come out and volunteer in their neighborhood to help us plant trees. I'd also encourage folks, if you have space to plant a tree where you live, to call the Sacramento Tree Foundation and sign up to get a free tree. And then the other thing that I'll mention is as a part of the urban forest plan, City Council directed staff to establish a working group. So in spring of 26, we're going to start working really closely with staff and community members on some of the policy implementation pieces of this plan. And if folks are interested in learning more or participating, they can email sactreeplan@cityofsacramento.org with their name, and I'll get them on the mailing list.
Wonderful. And what was the website that people can look up?
So to volunteer with us,
Mhm.
just Google City of Sac Volunteer in Parks program. And if you'd like to participate with our working group, you can email sactreeplan@cityofsac.org.
Wonderful. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time today, and Gabby as well. I really appreciate this and looking forward to this. And I have twins of my own that are 8 years old, and we're very involved with nature. So we're going to be volunteering and taking part in this program.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Riley, very cool. I love that story. And something that stood out to me, and your reaction was the same exact as mine. You said, wow, that's interesting. Is
Yes.
that naturally Sacramento only had trees along the river?
Mhm.
I never considered that, but it makes so much sense. So it gives you an idea how much of the tree canopy that we see has been a conscious decision to increase the tree canopy in Sacramento.
Absolutely. And they talked about the dates of volunteering and helping out and stuff. So I definitely want to take part of that and help the city.
All right. Sounds good. Good thing to do on the weekends here for us in Sacramento. All right, Riley, thank you very much. Coming up, we're going to hear from Genevieve Melzer and another interesting impact on weather when it comes to wedding DJs. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
Welcome back. And we know the weather never stops, right? And even if you're planning events or weddings, the weather takes part. I know, Adam, you had a special thing happen on your wedding day.
Yeah, it was really special because there was a partial eclipse, so I got to see some really cool shadows.
Did you plan this?
That was a coincidence, but I did plan my wedding in Sacramento based on climatology when I thought we'd have the best chance of pleasant
Mhm.
conditions, no rain, and it was in October.
Mhm.
And it worked out perfectly. It was so good for us. All right, let's hear from Genevieve Melzer about how a wedding DJ takes into account the forecast for their jobs.
Weather can make or break a wedding day, but what about the music? I sat down with a local wedding and special events DJ, Christopher Georgios of CBU Events. I asked him about the struggles and workarounds when doing outdoor events here in Sacramento and Northern California. How often does weather play a role in the weddings you DJ?
Weather plays a huge role in the events that I do, especially when it's rainy or really hot.
What are some of the challenges you face when doing outdoor weddings, especially with unpredictable weather?
It's going to be endless challenges. Well, first of all, what I do is when I talk to potential couples, I bring all of this up. I ask them, with their whatever they tell me their venue is, I say, listen, your wedding is in October. I know it says it might not rain, but it still could. I ask them, does your venue have a backup plan? Are they going to provide a tent? Is there a place to move everything inside? Because none of the equipment can get wet, it will get ruined. And then I say the same thing for summer weddings.
Have you had to make last minute changes to your setup due to the weather?
Yes, absolutely. When it gets over 100 degrees, which I don't even consider hot, I consider hot, like 110. But when it gets over 100 degrees, the laptop will overheat. And that's a major issue if you're trying to pull off a dance party while the laptop is overheating. So over the years, I've put together this system where if I know it's going to be over 100 degrees, I will go get dry ice from Safeway. And I actually constructed this system where it's a tray of dry ice and then like a laptop fan that fans the dry ice to the bottom of the laptop, keeping it cool. And that's how you survive the hot days in the summer.
Which season do you find most difficult to work in?
What gives me more anxiety is definitely the rain, because it's unpredictable. It could be windy, it could come in at an angle. Even if you're covered, your equipment can still get ruined. The summer weddings are harder to get through because it's so hot. And if you're outdoors the whole time, to have to perform and move around and set stuff up, you need to go in with a good night's sleep. You gotta have a bunch of drinks and basically a cooler full of stuff and the dry ice for the laptop to keep it cool. So more anxiety in the rain. It's harder in the summer, but I would probably take the heat over the rain, because even if it's raining, I'm still loading the stuff in the rain. And that also is not good. So I'll take the heat.
Can you share a memorable wedding where the weather completely changed the day, for better or worse?
So there was one last year. It was in Ukiah. And so just so you know, I do weddings all over the place. Yosemite, Ukiah. The one in Ukiah, it wasn't supposed to rain, and it started heavily pouring as I was pulling in. So I'm talking like plastic bags over equipment, just like someone following with umbrellas as you're loading stuff in on carts. And so when that happens, the load in time is so much longer. The setup time is like fill in the blank, because now we need a tent and the ceremony is completely outdoors. So, but what ended up happening is, going into that situation, you're like, oh man, like this is going to be a bummer, but it actually turned out to be like really cool. Everybody had umbrellas. Luckily the venue had umbrellas. So everybody was at the ceremony. I was under a tent. They had a tent for me, and everybody was at the ceremony. They had their umbrellas up, and the ceremony went well, and the couple really embraced it. They had a tent for the dinner area, but the dance floor was still outdoors. And when the couple was doing their first dance, it was in the rain, and they really embraced it. And they didn't let the weather bring them down. I didn't let it bring me down. And that vibe was strong enough. It was That vibe was a strong vibe that just kept going through the whole night. Just do not let your day be ruined by weather.
Remember, your DJ is working double time to keep the music playing, no matter the forecast, rain or shine. The show must go on. Now back to you in the studio.
That was a great interview from Genevieve Melzer. And quick question for you. I can understand why a DJ would prefer heat instead of rain, but as a wedding guest, would you rather it be 110 degrees or pouring?
110.
Ooh, I think I would prefer rain.
Oh, no. I would just short sleeves, shirt and shorts, and I'm good.
Okay,
And a cold beverage.
if the bride and groom are okay with you in a short sleeve shirt and shorts, then all the power to you.
I'd have to get permission.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Atmospheric Insight. We'll see you again next week.